This year, in 2026, we celebrate America's 250th anniversary, and it got me thinking about our own history right here in Souderton. This is a place where generations of people have built their lives, their businesses, and their families. Your home, the land that it sits on, the businesses you enjoy, and the institutions you rely on, they didn't just pop up in the time that you've needed them, and I think we take for granted those that came before us that made our community what it is today. And so the goal of this podcast is to interview Souderton Legends, just some of the people that made significant contributions to our community in their time. For some listeners, this may be a walk down memory lane. And for many, I hope it serves as a reminder and an inspiration to do good in your community in your time here. I'm Mayor of Souderton, Dan Yoakum, and welcome to the Souderton Legends Podcast. And today, we are joined by two exciting guests, two former superintendents of Souderton Area School District, Dr. Alex Grande.
Morning, everybody.
And Dr. Charlie Amuso.
Hello, and thanks, Dan.
Yeah, we're excited to have you both. So you both served, and the elephant in the room here I want to make clear is this represents superintendent leadership from let's say Souderton School District leadership from 1966 all the way through 2010. Mm-hmm. But with one exception, which is that Art Tinner is not with us. He is still living, but he lives in a faraway land of Lansdale. So he couldn't make it for it today. But we have so with a little gap, we have about half a century of school district leadership with us that really helped shape the community. So before we dive into that, though, I'd love to start with just a little background about where you grew up, how you got into education and that sort of thing. And if you're comfortable sharing, because I think they're both impressive numbers, do you mind telling us how old you are? Charlie, do you want to start?
Oh, I could start, sure.
Okay.
First of all, I'm 79 years old. Let's start with that.
You look great.
Yeah.
Don't look a day over 40.
Thanks, Dan. What are you selling next? No, I grew up in a suburb of Pittsburgh, and when I was in college in Wheeling, West Virginia, I was intending to go to law school. In fact, when I took these aptitude tests, they said I should go to law school. But then I got involved with a student group at the college that tutored kids in the inner city in Wheeling. And I fell in love with that. I enjoyed working with the kids. I said, I'm going to do that. So I went to University of Pittsburgh, got a master's degree because I had a bachelor's in English, and there are no English factories now. So I
especially in Wheeling, West Virginia.
So I got the master's degree and then became a teacher in the Baldwin-Whitehall School District teaching English. And I was there for a number of years, and then moved east to, lived in Lebanon County for 11 years and worked for the intermediate unit there and basically in adult education. And we were there during the influx from after the Vietnam War, when the Vietnamese folks came in and were funneled through Indiantown Gap in north of Annville. And we had a lot of business in teaching folks English. So then later went to Kane, Pennsylvania, became superintendent there. I don't know how much you want here, Dan. I was superintendent there for a few years, and then moved to the Lehigh Valley at Catasauqua School District, later at Boyertown Area School District, and in 2004 applied for the job here in Souderton. And
we'll get into that.
Okay.
But that's good. You've been all over the place. As superintendent, that's an uncommon career path, I think, to be a superintendent at 3 different school districts.
That's 4.
4 different school districts.
Who's counting?
Right. Good. Okay. And Alex.
Yes.
Tell me about your Well, if you're comfortable sharing your impressive age and then your background, where you grew up and how'd you get into education?
Sure, thank you. And in about 90 days, I'll be 82.
Oh, wow, good for you.
And when I first started in education, for those that know me, I was 6'4", had dark hair and had hair. I no longer look like that in any sense of the word. But I grew up basically in Delaware County and moved out into the Montgomery County and spent some time in Bucks. But most of my life now has been in Montgomery County. I went through Westchester as a secondary education major, teacher history, and I loved law, absolutely loved it. Matter of fact, I had a professor who would challenge us, take any day in any year, and he would tell you legally what happened on that day. So we tested him a number. The professor was absolutely brilliant. So as a result of that, I really had a love for law. So I applied to Rutgers and actually had an assistantship guaranteed in law, which would have led to a law degree had I stayed there. But enjoying some aspects of student teaching in Delaware County, once again, one of the professors from the experimental school asked if I wanted to come in and teach science to middle school age students. And I love science, and I said, sure. So I did that for about 8 weeks, loved it, decided, now I have a choice to make. Do I want to be a lawyer or do I want to stay as a teacher? At that time, one of my best friends happened to have an interview in the Souderton area school district. And he mentioned a fellow by the name of Roy Dunger and Dr. Fitzpatrick. So back in those days, they would give you a call, so forth and so on. And I went up for an interview, and apparently I did pretty well. And they offered me the job on a Friday in the summer. And I said, well, let me think about it over the weekend. Now, those days are gone. If you're offered a job in education, you don't think over the weekend. So I took the job, and I ended up being a fourth grade teacher, started in Summit Street. Then from there, I went down to West Broad Street. In terms of my professional aspect after that, when I left the district in 1994, I did a lot of consulting and turning around schools that were in distress. Many of them were cyber schools and charter schools, and I did that for a while. After 2002, I officially retired from the public school system down at Heifer Horsham when I was at Simmons Elementary School. From there, we set up a consulting business, and then I started doing consulting in the greater Philadelphia area, and twice we had the opportunity to go to Kenya. Became affiliated with a group called in Swahili in terms of working with underprivileged children who were having struggling resources and all that. And that came as a result as both my wife and I getting a BS also in business, since we were so heavily in education. So one thing led to the other, and our friend challenged us to come to Kenya. Well, at that time, my wife was in her sabbatical, so we took him up on that. And what we did is we went to Kenya for right outside of Nairobi, 3 years, worked with some freedom fighters who actually helped fight for their independence from England. Also met with the bank officials and also insurance companies, and did some things on the work of Stephen Covey and other forms of leadership, servant leadership, and those concepts following along of leadership. After we came back, we went back again 2 years later, and they'd actually wanted to offer us a stipend to live in Kenya for 6 months of the year and then come back to the States. We found out that we were going to be grandparents, and at the same time, we didn't know it. We both had cancer.
Oh.
And unfortunately, that put the kibosh on that. So although we have not been back to Kenya, our desire is to eventually go back sometime.
Well, that's amazing. Who knew? I didn't know any of that.
None of us know.
Right.
And I guess people in our close circle know that. What I did also is I was, 12 courses at a temple, set up programs at Grande and Dr, and also did work at Lehigh in terms of educational leadership and administration.
Amazing. You both had long careers.
Yes.
But I do want to I want to dive into when you first started, which is, I believe it's 60 years ago this year.
Yes, it is. Yeah, matter of fact, in the fall.
1966. Yep. A young Alex Grande starts at Souderton School District, and tell us about that, with those early days.
I taught at Summit Street.
Which is no longer.
Correct.
It's now Souderton Borough Hall.
Yes, and actually the classroom that I taught in, there were, except for first grade, there was only one teacher for each grade. There were 2 first grade teachers, one third, one fourth, and one fifth. So right now is where the board actually holds some of their smaller meetings, is where the classroom used to be.
Your old chalkboard is still there. It is. It is. So, and I think that school closed in 1983.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. After they, I shifted after that, and I'll come back to this again, to West Broad Street. Obviously, after losing Chestnut Street School, making the modifications on the MC, they built West Broad. Mr. Clemmer was my principal at both schools, asked me to come down to West Broad Street, which I did in 67. Stayed there for a couple of years.
And tell us about West Broad Street Elementary. I mean, I'm sure a lot of our listeners went there. I went there.
Yeah, yes.
So tell us what West Broad was in 1967. It was brand new,
Yes,
right?
absolutely brand new. One of the first air-conditioned elementary schools in the county. One of the first carpeted elementary schools in the county. And again, Mr. Clemmer was a good mentor and leader, a great staff. About after my second year as a fourth grade teacher, Mr. Clemmer decided to take a sabbatical. And I guess in consultation with Dr. Dungan, who was superintendent at that time, and Mr. who became Dr. Fitzpatrick, asked me whether I'd like to be an acting principal, because they knew I was looking at leadership courses at Lehigh University. And I said, sure. And what was great about that is you always think you work with a great staff. But actually being in the so-called trenches with them, getting into their classrooms, getting to know the students, their teaching styles, their learning styles, getting to know the families, the many contributions that the different community groups makes to the schools was great.
And so you've really been in a leadership position in Souderton since 1968, 1969?
Yes.
I mean, that is a long time. You just 2 years as a teacher and then right into a leadership role.
Just made it the age limit as a first principalship. I was at one time the youngest principal in the state of Pennsylvania.
Wow.
For about a year.
Wow.
So I repeated that a couple years later when Mr. Clemmer took a sabbatical. And then after that, I got an offer from the school district down in Montgomery County and North Willow Grove Elementary School, very small school system, and stayed there for either a year or a year and a half. And then I got a phone call back from Dr. Dungan this time, said, Mr. Clemmer's going to be retiring. Are you interested in coming back to Souderton? So, obviously, I was. That was some of the best years of my life. I actually went to North Willow Grove down there, and then I came back as an elementary principal, and then became a member of the principals groups, the cadre of leaders at all the elementary schools with Mark Harris. Artin was there, George Mills was there at that time, and
what were the elementary schools at that time? Because they've shifted around since then.
Well, at that time, there was Branconia, Lower Salford, Salford Hills, West Broad, and EMC. Chestnut Street had been closed, I think as a result of maybe modifications that they made or the actual building.
And tell us about Chestnut Street, because it's also no longer there.
Yeah, I was never in the building. At one time, I think it was the Indian Valley Public Library for a very short period of time before it became the place where it is now over in Telford. As you're right, it's a parking lot.
Yeah.
but some teachers that were at Chestnut Street, like Mrs. Crowdell and some others, also came to Summit Street or went to other schools in the district.
And so you were still at West Broad, right? At that time, you were now a principal at West Broad.
Yes.
And close enough to Souderton. Technically Franconia Township, but we'll call it,
Yeah.
But the only borough school is EMC.
Yes.
And I did want to ask you if, this is a Souderton Legends podcast, so of course there is maybe nobody with greater name recognition in Souderton district history than Mert Crathamel.
Correct.
He was probably retired by the time you started, but did you know him?
Yes, I did know him. Not very well, but you're right. He was retired. Every now and then he would come to some of the different schools. And early on, I got involved in Rotary and the Chamber of Commerce, and I don't know if I had some associations with him there also. But yes, I did know him.
And that's the namesake for
EMC.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
What was it called before EMC? If he was still alive?
I only knew it as EMC, Mert Crathamel, but they abbreviated it, obviously.
Interesting that he was still living when they named the school after him.
Yes.
We could all be so lucky.
Yeah.
I'm still aiming for Amuso school district, but we haven't gotten there yet. And then so before we go on to your assistant superintendent job, I just want to hear a little bit about what was Souderton Elementary School like in the 70s?
Actually, I thought it was really very progressive. I think under the leadership of Dr. Duncan, with the help of the school board, obviously, and also Dan Fitzpatrick, and a good cadre of elementary principals, and principals in general too. George Warner, I think, was at In Valley at that time, and I forget the name of the fellow who was at Crest, George Patton. He was actually a pitcher for the Yankees for a while. And then at the high school...
Wait. Talk about that a little bit more.
I don't know how long he lasted, but he was, and I don't know if he actually made it to the majors or whether he was in the minors, but he was a prospect in the Yankees farm system.
And his name was George Patton?
George Warner, I'm sorry.
George Warner, okay. I didn't get to say.
Patton was George Warner was at Indian Valley. George Patton is the one that was at Indian Crest.
Okay. Yeah, talk through these names, because this is the things that people like to hear, and they'll remember these people, like Dr. Dungan, who you worked for originally.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, actually, officially, he was the person who made the recommendation to the board with Dr. Fitzpatrick for my hiring, and he stayed for a number of years and then retired. Mm-hmm. And then for a while, he also helped supervise student teachers, which I did a little bit later on in my career once I left the public school system and everything. Dan Fitzpatrick, the last I know, he was out in Arizona. I'm not sure whether he's still alive anymore, but he was a great person as director of elementary education.
Great. And then, so you're at West Broad Elementary. You're a principal for quite a number of years, and then you become assistant superintendent of the school district.
Correct.
And what year was that?
That would have been, I think, January of 1985. I think is when I officially started that position. And I was kind of surprised, to be honest with you, because I thought there were a lot of really well-trained professionals in the field. But I was pleased because it was one of the most exciting jobs that you can have in education. I was able to set up a lot of training programs. I was able to, one of the leadership styles at that was sort of like mastery learning and other techniques, how to have a successful lesson. And I and a small group of other teachers taught the entire faculty in the entire district those strategies. So I got to know each teacher on a first-hand basis, be able to go into their classrooms, see how their strategies changed. And even at that point in time, even as a principal, I think the role of administration, you're a lead learner and you're a lead teacher. You never leave those two. I think they have to be in your mind to be a successful educator, even if you never leave the classroom. So, and I was lucky enough to surround myself with good people. I believed in servant leadership and leadership succession in terms of that. And a lot of the people that were in the district, even before and after I left, assumed administrative positions in other districts were successful too. So that did my heart well too.
Yeah. And then can you talk about any of those people that maybe some of our listeners or the 5 people that are going to listen to this might assume might classify as their legends that were there forever that you may have worked with as teachers?
Yeah, at the elementary level, there were so many. Aileen Mays, John Light, trying to just think, of course, almost all the entire staff, Betty Wasser, Don Weinberger, a lot of the teachers at West Broad Street. But even around the district, there were gems in every single building, and I was lucky enough as assistant superintendent and then superintendent to visit them in their classroom. Many times I came in and read to the kids. Sometimes I co-taught lessons with some of the teachers, particularly in the area of social studies. They wouldn't have trusted me in science and mathematics. But Larry Updike was another, just so many.
Larry definitely was a Souderton legend,
yes,
for sure.
Yeah.
And his wife is still involved in Souderton stuff.
Yeah.
So, that's...
So I feel graced. I think I learned as much from them, and hopefully they did learn some things from me.
Yeah.
There were a lot of different concepts floating around in the late 70s, early 80s, right up into the 90s, in terms of teaching styles, learning styles, competency-based assessment, other jargon that you did. And I felt as an administrator, just try and stay on top of that. If it's legitimate, bring back the things that you know that will work. Some of the other things I was proudest of is the development of the district string program. District did not have strings until they became assistant superintendent.
Wow.
And of course, that now led to the orchestra program that they have. Unfortunately, some tragedies the district experienced led to better gains. Unfortunately, we had one of our students commit suicide, and right away I reached out to the state and county. We set up a suicide prevention program. We also did a lot with the mental health guidance counseling, made arrangements with some local agencies in terms of providing mental health services in addition to our psychologists and our guidance counselors.
Which was ahead of its time. I mean, now that's pretty standard practice, but maybe not at that time.
At one time, we were nationally known for our suicide prevention program and the outreaches that we made to community agencies.
Wow.
In terms of that part of it, adolescence.
Yeah. One thing I want to touch on, too, before we go any further into your career, and Charlie, I promise we'll talk to eventually. Charlie's still here. He's just sleeping over there.
Very comfortable.
Yeah. Charlie oversaw one of the biggest decisions to ever happen in this school district, so we are definitely going to talk about it. But one thing I wanted to talk about before we get too far along is in 1979, while you were in a leadership position in the district, you helped transition Telford Elementary, which is full circle for you.
Yes.
Because you're very active in the library now. So I don't want to talk about it. I want you to talk about that whole.
What was happening is funding started to become an issue, and it still is. Libraries are, like our local library only receives 10% from the state in terms of funding and everything. So you're on your own. What's unique about us is that we've represented basically the Souderton School District. One of the governing bodies decided to pull out, but that doesn't mean that they can't still participate in that. So obviously they were.
We might edit that out. But tell me about this closure of that school, and then I think you were involved in getting it to become the library, correct?
Yes. Dr. Maxwell was in charge on the board at that time, and he was a previous superintendent too. And we had the building that wasn't being used, and
because attendance dropped in the school district.
What we ended up doing was actually closing Telford, and but 2020 hindsight, on the board administration's part prior to that, they did not sell it. They basically used it for other purposes. And then when it came time for the library, which was expanding by leaps and bounds, we had a building there.
And where was it before? I mean, this is not a thing. This is not necessarily about the library, but it was close around the corner before then.
I think it was in a house over in Telford. Part of the time, I understand, it was at Chestnut Street. But I think it went from Chestnut Street to the house someplace in Telford. And at that point in time, they were looking for something. So Dr. Maxwell and I, over coffee sometimes, said, hey, look, we have an empty building. What do you think about we offer that to Telford as a public library on a 99-year lease? And things worked out well, and all the municipalities seemed to agree with that. We set up a system by which each municipality would contribute so much based on that. Now, of course, a lot of them have library taxes to help with that. And lo and behold, eventually it became. And the library is, I think, going to be there forever now because the cost of rebuilding is astronomical. And as we're all aware, funding for all good causes is very, very tight now.
Right.
So that's really how it got started, and it's worked out well.
I mean, that's amazing. That is a legacy that people don't maybe have forgotten, that you are not only still involved in the library, but you were a person that kind of wheeled and dealed and negotiated to get it where it is today.
Well, I've always felt the community, and I'm a spiritual person. I think that God's been good to me. I can say that in the podcast. So I like to give back to the community. A lot of the organizations I belong to and still belong to were nonprofits, 501c3s. And not only did I financially contribute, but I was in leadership positions in them.
And I do want to get into that because both of you are still very involved in Souderton in non-school district ways. But let's pause on that thought so we can circle back to it.
Sure.
I want to now talk about your time as superintendent, specifically how you both are interconnected, because I think you would say that so you became superintendent in, I believe, 1988.
Yes.
That was quite a long time ago.
Yeah.
So in 1988, I think you and Charlie faced something similar, which is what landed on your desk was a talk of a new high school. Is that right?
Yeah. Actually, the board that hired me as superintendent made a decision to reconfigure Indian Crest, which started out as replacement windows. I think at an initial cost of about $17,000, ending up being a building that ran over $18 million. So at that point in time, Dr. Price was still superintendent. He submitted his resignation in terms of retirement from the position. So come January 1, 1988, that became my baby. And fortunately, there was a clerk of the works, but at times I also served as the clerk of the works. Many of the times I was even as assistant superintendent, I went into the meetings in terms of how the progress was or was not going, some of the complexities of the challenge, and the asbestos removal throughout the building and everything. And then eventually that particular board that voted to reconstruct the Indian Crest, what was the old Indian Crest at that time, a new board came in, and then, of course, eventually, under Charlie's leadership, a new school was built.
I mean, that's amazing that the thought for that spanned 30 years almost. Yeah, the talk of it definitely took longer than the construction.
I learned about construction that I didn't know.
Yeah.
And some things I'm glad I didn't know.
Right.
Because things did not go as well as what we had wanted. But we got there. The school opened late. Generous teachers, school board members, and I, students came in the weekend before we officially opened. The auditorium was a mess. It was dirty. We vacuumed it. We cleaned off the seats, got rid of the dust and everything, and we had an abbreviated open, later.
And that was Indian Crest, renovated.
Yeah.
And then during your tenure, the thought to move the high school facility died or it didn't go forward at that
Yeah,
time.
a feasibility study was generated, and there were three provisions. One was a new high school. One was basically just to replace the windows or do an overhaul. Once they did the overhaul, obviously the cost escalated to, like I said, I think like over 18 million as opposed to replacing the windows.
I mean, that's a drop in the bucket compared to what they did 30 years later. Yeah. But Charlie can talk all about that.
Yes, he can.
So after, and we're gonna go back to your time as superintendent, because there are some community legacy things that you put in place that are still in place today.
Okay.
But then there was during that time, so you kind of started this, or during your time was the start of a conversation about moving the old high school from School Lane to somewhere else. But that really came to fruition decades later, and so I want to switch over to Charlie to talk about your time, because you knew that going in that this was not going to be an easy job that you were taking after already being superintendent 3 other times. So can you tell us about how you got to Souderton, and what you were expecting? And
in my past experience as superintendent, I had the opportunity to work on building projects, not a completely new building, but additions, and mostly additions to other buildings. So I had that background, and when I was being interviewed, that was one of the key questions that Richard Swartley and the other board members were asking about my background, and they were interested in that particular facet of my experience.
And before we go on, this was what year?
This is 2005.
Okay.
2004 is when the interview process started. Mm-hmm. And it was quite an interesting process, I'm telling you, from other experiences I had. Particularly, there was a open call public meeting at Indian Crest Auditorium one night, and they had each of the candidates come in, each of us separately. So I had the opportunity, and the community had the opportunity, to basically ask me anything they want, which they did, which I had a good time doing that. I think this is a great place. What an open community that's willing to have not just the board members, and not just in my prior experience interviewing, they would have a control group of community members that would come in, and they knew who they were. But Souderton wasn't afraid as a school board to just have anybody to come in. And I learned a lot that night.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. That might be scary today.
Including where are the best places in Souderton to eat.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, important to me.
Sure.
But, so that was fascinating to me.
Yeah. That
they would do that. At any rate, I began work here on February 9th, 2005. Mm-hmm. At that point, the decision had already been made over a long period of discussion and debate of where to place the school, which is the offer by J.P. Mascaro to sell the acreage that's mainly the acreage in where the building is now. Mm-hmm. A total of 104 acres, most of it from Mascaro, and some others from some farmers over in that area. So my first month I spent going to settlements of buying this property. And that was quite interesting. Stan Whistler was our business manager at the time, and he grimaced each time he wrote the check, signed the check, $6.4 billion at one place, and it was fascinating. So it was the first month and a half that I was here.
And dealing with Mascaro can sometimes be fascinating too.
Yeah, we had, at that point, it was fine. Everybody was in agreement. They had agreed on a price. It was not a negotiation. Mm-hmm. It was just, we were all in the same room over at the district office, and the check was signed by Stan, and the proper attorneys and whatever notaries were present, and we did that. And we did that also with some farm families, people that owned farms in the area. And we needed the property because one of the additional property, one of the issues was Lower Road was a 90-degree turn right where the entrance to the high school was planned by President Architects. And this was going to be the main entrance driveway to the high school. So that road had to be rebuilt completely. If instead of a 90-degree, it had to be what's called a softened curve, which you see now. And
that was a road that it was not a well-trafficked road at the time.
So it was just this right angle turn. I still remember the little dirt road where we had the groundbreaking on, was that June the 1st, 2006. At any rate, the road was the old road there, and that whole thing had to be rebuilt. So we had to buy property. The district had to buy property. At any rate, the decision had been made, the location, and basically what the school, there was a sketch plan already drawn by the architects of what this school would look like. So that was of course, a major project with, and going to the construction meetings, and we had, huge crowds of people at these meetings, the architects, the engineers, the general contractor, the main subcontractors, the plumbing, the electric, and everything under the roofing.
And the public.
Well, the public, that's one of the significant changes that occurred during this process. When I first came here, it was the most relaxed school board meeting I'd ever been in. Richard Swartley was the president of the board. And before each action item, he would ask, is there any public comment? And sometimes somebody would make a comment, and that was it, and in the meetings they were a little bit lengthy sometimes, but people got to say what they wanted to say right before the vote was taken, or right before the vote was taken, and it was very relaxed. However, once we started borrowing the money for the project, we borrowed $91 million, and the total project cost was $117 million, which, by the way, was a bargain compared to a district south of here that built a building for $120 million that was half as big, and it was on the school district already owned property.
Wow.
So this is why it's a large school that we have, 445,000 square feet, but it's a large basic building, and it does the job, as you know, and it was so it wasn't overly lavish or anything, although that's not the concept that we dealt with every board meeting.
Right.
And we had to organize the comment period now so that the board, people would line up like they do now and sign in, and we had long lines of people. Then we had to the board decided to limit the comment period to a certain, whatever it was, I can't remember, 20 minutes maybe, because it would go on for all night.
Well, it was the biggest. You were now overseeing the biggest decision that had probably ever happened since they built the high school in the first place. Which
is interesting that I found out in the process, in analysis of the existing school lane building, was actually 8 different buildings, including the pool building, which was separate. But structurally, there was the 1930 edition, then there was the B wing, the C wing, the E wing. I lose track.
I think anybody that ever went to that school could have told you that, because it was so hard to get around.
Well, if you're on the second floor and you wanted to go to the third floor, I think you went down at some place, and sometimes you went up stairways.
Yes.
Anyway, it was a beautiful old building.
Yeah, it's really, it is sad that it's not there anymore. It was like a movie set high school, really.
And when it was an absolute classic, the part was the grain staircase going up to the auditorium. Spectacular. And the auditorium, of course, on the second floor there. What a spectacular, just a beautiful building.
Yeah.
And we felt really bad. There were all kinds of proposals of what it should be used for. and that older building should be preserved, et cetera, et cetera. So we spent the better part of 4 years building this high school. We dedicated on October 11th, 2009, but we opened prior to that in September. It was, one of the key factors was the art department, which had formerly been below grade with no windows, now has almost a wing of 4 classrooms with southern exposure. Some certain things were handled extremely well. I mean, there's aspects of that building that you would really ideally want to have, and our students, our teachers have it. So, but during this whole process, the staff was magnificent. The teachers, the principals, and the building principals, because in addition to building the school, we were also readjusting the grade levels. As you remember, there was a K through 5 at the elementary levels at that time. 6th and 7th, all students went to Indian Valley, and 8th and 9th went to Indian Crest, and 10 through 12 at the high school. And we were moving to a 9 through 12 high school and 2 middle schools. So we had to redo the curriculum, reassign teachers. It was that 4-year period was a massive undertaking by the entire school district team and the parents, having to readjust, where their kids are going to go to school. And they're not all going to be in the 6th grade at Valley. They're going to be 2 middle schools. And of course that was just in those 4 years. And there were other things too, which I should mention. We had a strike in October, October of 2005 by the support staff. It didn't end till the end of November. And that was a state mediator that recommended that recommendation that was accepted by both sides. Then in 2008, we had the teacher strike. It started September 2nd, and then they came back to the school to teach on September 19th, which is a Friday. And people were upset about that because why start on a Friday? But
that's a lot of stress. You tell me you're the superintendent. You're not necessarily from here. You kind of got thrown into all of this. Yeah. What was it like? Were you sleeping at night?
Not very well. Let's just put it that way. But the staff was terrific. The administrative staff, the faculties, and one of my practices as a superintendent here and everywhere else was I visited every principal every month for at least an hour. I was a scheduled on the calendar visit, and I'd have a chance to walk through the school. And I did a lot of reading to classes at the elementary level, which is one of my favorite parts of my job, reading to the kids. That we had a good time doing that, or I did. So it was kind of a tumultuous 4 years at that time, to say the least. But everything was accomplished with a teacher contract was settled through, the teachers agreed to non-binding arbitration and came back to work, as I said, it was a Friday, I think September 19th. And, but that was stressful for, the parents, the community. It was really difficult. Sure. I really felt for the parents, especially the September 2nd, when the teachers went on strike, because all of a sudden they don't have any
childcare,
and they couldn't find childcare, and it was really a difficult time. So it was a lot of stress.
Yeah,
a lot of stress. But we had a great team, administrative team, like I said, and the teachers, building principals. Yeah.
And before we move, back into both of your times in leadership in the community, so the high school moves. But you are still the superintendent when you have to deal with a 1930 colossal building, which was challenging to deal with.
That was difficult. We had it under contract for sale several different times, and each time whoever was the potential buyer thought the better of it and said no. So, and then there started to be problems in the building after we moved out. After the students were at the new high school, that's when the building was really, it was hard to keep up that building.
Sure.
Hard to maintain a new high school and this massive older building that actually was 8 separate buildings.
I think the Souderton police would agree with you at that time.
Well, we had many conversations.
Right.
I think Chief Quinn was chief at the time. And many conversations about finding young people, wreaking havoc in the building or trying to, or having a good time, whatever they were doing, and skateboarding in the halls. And I mean, what an attractive nuisance that was.
Yeah, sure, of course.
So, and then I retired in June of 2010. Sometime after that is when that building was demolished. I think we signed a contract to demolish it before I retired. And then that building was demolished, and now we have
what it is today, which is fine. I'll say, as the mayor of Souderton, it's it is what it is now. It's people want to live in that community. We now have a Starbucks and a Taco Bell coming in and a Goddard school, so it's fine. But it deep down, it is sad that, and I think most of Souderton would agree that it is sad that iconic school couldn't stand.
There was one proposal that we just preserve the facade of the 1930 building, and we actually looked into that. And it got to be, or if we did that, then what are we going to do with the rest of the area there? Who would buy it? And it was...
Well, Souderton, there's a secret, I think, but Souderton Borough still has one of the, I don't know what you would, it's like a cement piece that went up on top of that parapet above the front door. So I always had envisioned that it would go back to that site. And now that the site's basically done or close to being done, we should re-explore that. But you can be at the ribbon cutting when we do that.
You can find a place for that.
Yeah.
There's some open space up there.
Sure. Yeah. So that's a connecting thread between both of you, which is that way back in 1990 or 1989, you, Alex, were talking about the thing that Charlie got to execute on. And that's pretty cool. That's an interesting connecting thread.
Yes, it is.
Now you're both. I also wanted to know, as far as school board people, were there people on the school board that you would consider Souderton Legends? You mentioned Richard Swartley, who's of course still.
I think
active.
Richard Swartley is the person who stands out to me on that board, because he had been on the board during the discussion, which he told me about, of what to do with where they actually made the decision that they needed to go forward. He was on the board for that. But there was another discussion, I think, I want to say I don't know what time frame it was, but there was a discussion to completely renovate the existing school lane school. And they did cost estimates on that, and it got to be, it cost so much to do that's when they decided to find another place. And there were several locations discussed. I wasn't part of that, but I've heard about it.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about, I don't know if we need to do that.
No. And Alex, any people that you served with that you would consider legends?
Yeah, probably maybe one of the biggest is Mike Bittner, Mr. Souderton. He's obviously on the Wall of Fame in the high school. Mike was very influential. Harry Price, actually, prior to even any renovations being done on the old crest, I can remember Harry and I driving around in Franconia Township looking for farmland over where the Ruths lived and that area there. And for some reason, when I went back to that particular committee, they thought it wasn't a wise decision. So Harry was good. Merle Ear, Dennis Krause. I mean, they were all good in some way. They all brought the attributes to their vocations and vocations with them to the board meetings to give multiple perspectives. At times when I was doing national presentations, a number of them would actually come to places like California or New Orleans or wherever I was presenting to support me in that. And obviously I would acknowledge the input of a board that is committed to what you're doing. I always felt Souderton was a gem in the forest. If you mention Souderton, they say, where? And my goal was to change that from where. Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. They do some really neat things there. So I think that was part of the positive public relations, but not just the glow and show. I mean, the excellent curriculum, the excellent teachers, the decision making, the staff development.
Right. I imagine you also faced some of those similar marathon meetings that Charlie was just talking about. Any particularly memorable?
Oh, yes. I don't know the exact date of it, but it was obviously sometime in the, I think, late 80s, a taxpayer revolt movement in the western part of the state near Pittsburgh came into fruition. And one of the things is, one of the challenges you have as a superintendent is to make sure that you do your best to keep the taxation and the millage appropriate. At times, if you don't raise millage, it comes back to haunt you a couple of years down. And one of those times I ran into that situation, and we had like 1,200 people at a board meeting. They came out in red, white, and blue. That board meeting went to 2 o'clock in the morning. After that, we changed the guidelines that it's all comparable to what was discussed earlier in terms of that. So that was probably the most challenging and a lot of people came to the podium, gave their thoughts. We thanked them for their comments, and we said we would get back to them, and we did in one way or the other. We did, but that's probably the one that rings the most. Having that.
I have also not that scale, but yeah, when you're sitting in the front of the room getting screamed at by your neighbors, that's not always the most heartwarming sensation. Yeah, well, but it's what public service. It's why you do this. So
in those days, the board meeting was held on the stage at Crest, and what they had to do was open up the back curtains so the people that would be now sitting in the cafeteria would be able to attend that meeting. So
that's right, because the admin offices where Charlie worked were not, they didn't exist.
Correct. Yep.
So where were you based then?
Okay, if you go out of the auditorium
at Crest
and take a left, go up that hallway.
Oh God, you lost me already. Okay, but you were in Crest.
Used to be Mike Furdock's room, and then you go into the small administrative office area. You can see, if you go around the building from the outside, you can see the glass spaces that used to be offices.
Okay,
where the administration was back in those days.
Okay, good. So you both did this. You both served nobly in this really important role. It's probably the most influential role in the school district, which by definition is a huge role in the community. But both of you, I now want to talk a little bit about your continued public service, because it didn't end there. And that's really why I think you both are classified as the Souderton Legends, because you continued on that service. I mean, Alex, you're from here and have spent the vast majority of your life here, but you've continued to serve. One note I have is that I think you were part of starting the Indian Valley Education Foundation.
I did. That was back my idea. Jeff Sultanic was the solicitor at this time, and with some of the things going on nationwide and everything, and just the uprising across the country about taxes and everything, there were some really great programs that just could not get funded. And
you realized you live in a very uniquely generous community.
Yes, exactly. So I went to Jeff Sultanic and I said, Jeff, on one of my presentations, I was talking to somebody in Tennessee, and they had the concept of a attachment to the school district whose sole purpose was to get donations, monies, apply for grants, and allocate that money for innovative teaching projects or innovative things within the school district, not just the professional staff, the non-professional staff too. And we set that up in 1992, and it's still thriving today. As a matter of fact, my granddaughter, because two of my children did go through the school system, but my granddaughter is in charge of is on that council now. And after obviously I left the district and had to make a decision where I wanted to live. Basically, I could have lived anywhere, but I chose Souderton.
Yeah.
Right up from West Broad Street School. And actually, there's a funny story that I meant to mention. One of the biggest challenges you're not going to find in any administrative book or probably anything else. Don Weinberger was a 6th grade teacher. I don't know if you had Don at that time or not. I got a phone call, and he says, Dr. Grande, I think I have a unique challenge for you. Could you please come down to my room right away? Fortunately, I was only like 30 feet away. Well, here, and part of the school was built back to Granville Moyer's property.
Oh, right.
Actually, our house was built on where his barn was. So anyway, I go down there.
Granville Moyer's property, of course, being on the majority there of West Broad Street at the time.
So I go walking down, and here is this cow with its head through the side door coming in. So I went to the cafeteria and tried to get carrots or something like that. And it did it a little bit. And then Mrs. Lamparter, bless her soul, was a secretary. I said, please call Bessie Moyer or Granville to come and get their cow off of that. So that was probably one of the most unique experiences I have. I mean,
only you thought, where the heck did I just start?
And, the children were not in harm in any way, and everything. It was just one of those things once in a lifetime.
Right,
so.
right. And then that's very funny, and maybe still true at some of our schools today. Although the landscape's changed so much, probably not. And you're still involved on the board of the library, which is, again, this thing that you started or were involved with the current building. So you still have board service there, which is
yeah. I joined the public library board in 2015. Vic Burbeck was the president, and
also a former school board member.
Yeah. Vic and I are good friends, and. So as a result of that, Vic asked if I would like to develop part of a leadership succession plan. We did. I conducted the first strategic plan for the Indian Valley Public Library. Part of that plan was something comparable that I developed for the school district, but we labeled it the Foundation of Friends. And what it is, Vic and I actually submitted and wrote the 501c3. And the whole purpose of the Foundation of Friends, which still exists today, is to receive monies to help support programs, things of quality at the library in terms of carpeting, technology.
It's like the Indian Valley Education Foundation that you started at the school district, but it's for the library. Yeah, that's what I mean. And that's a huge attribute to the community now.
Yeah.
So you've been in continuous, well, I guess you maybe had a little bit of break when you went elsewhere, but you've more or less had continuous service from 1966 till today. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And Charlie, you also are still very active. You want to tell us, because those long late night meetings, apparently you didn't get enough while you were employed. So you still have them now.
Well, during the construction of the high school, because it's located in Franconia Township, we had to have many meetings with the Township Board of Supervisors, the zoning hearing board, and so forth. Particularly the workshop meetings of the Franconia Township Board at that time were at 7 a.m. on Friday mornings. Now they're at 5 o'clock right before the board meeting. But at that time they were at 7 a.m. So, and those meetings would go for a while. And I got to know the Township Board of Supervisors and the folks that worked there. And they were kidding me when I was retiring. We're going to put you to work. I said, fine, let me know. So I guess 2013, they asked me if I would serve on the zoning hearing board. So I was on there for a few years, became chair of that. found that very fascinating, very interesting, kind of along the same lines of building a school. The same kinds of concepts that you're dealing with when people come in and have a proposal to do something that needs zoning relief. And then at some point they asked, we're going to have an opening on the township board. Would you like to serve on that?
And no one else wants to serve on it because who would want to do that?
Well,
so they asked you.
Well, they asked me specifically to do it. So,
Right.
So I agreed to do it, and that was 2016, and I'm still involved, thankfully, been reelected a couple times, and I've enjoyed that. It's the same type of, a little more relaxed than the school board.
Yeah.
In terms of the meetings.
Right. But you're dealing with the same. You're still up there getting heat from your neighbors about the same types of issues. I know that feeling well.
Well, it's interesting, and I'm starting to develop more background. Some of the members of our township board, particularly our chair, Gray Gottschall, and Robert Nice also, they know who had which farm which year, who used to live in that farmhouse, whose farm, as you were talking about, there was a farm. They know where all the farms are and where they were, where they aren't anymore. So it's quite interesting for me to serve on that board, and I'm happy to do it. And we, as I said, I don't know if I said this yet, but we were so impressed when we moved to the community. We said, this is where we want to settle here. And that's what we did 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
20
Well,
more.
amazing. That's so you both have long tenures of service, and it's appreciated and it's noticed, and you both qualify easily as Souderton Legends in my mind. So before we wrap up here, if there's anything else you want to talk about, we are more than welcome to. If you want to look, both of you are obviously educators because you both brought folders full of paperwork to review.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add in is as part of my goal to get people to recognize, we actually implemented a total communications program. We developed a welcome packet. The people came in. Ellen Jameson, who happened to work at the Independent at that time.
She was still there when you were there, right?
She was.
Yep.
And Ellen did a great job in formulating our communications program. We started inviting all the municipalities, the police force, the fire services, all the other important critical agencies, at least once a year for a breakfast to give them an update on what the status of the school district was, how they could help, if they would like to volunteer and everything. And I actually mentioned Gray Gottschall. Gray and the entire Gottschall family went through West Broadwell when I was down there, Bobby's children and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, we and I think many of those programs still exist today, which makes me happy. Because
and it is a really tight-knit, unique community even today. So yeah, I think that's the kind of stuff that makes it that way, and that's visionary from you.
That's remarkable. The Souderton Area School District is made up of 6 municipalities, and we can still say it's close-knit community.
Yeah.
It's really amazing, and it is.
Yeah, and I think this is about Souderton Legends, not about current events. I won't wade into current events. But I think that probably gets lost in the noise a little bit these days because, like, every level of government seems like it's full of infighting. But take that out of the mix. The people, the educators, the staff, the parents, the students, and the community that surrounds them, it is really still old school in its approach to being collaborative and community knit and based right here. So yeah, I think that that does set us apart, and it's kind of in a fading in the modern world.
From my experience, I can verify that because I've been in several places, as you mentioned, and to have 6 municipalities feel as one community doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Other places.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, back to the library, if that cooperation that you talked about didn't exist, we would not have the Indian Valley Public Library. What forced the issue was the school district used to subsidize part of the library's funding that was cut in half. So automatically the library's budget was sliced in half. So how in the world were we able to have a viable library for the community at the same time have funding. And representatives from each of the municipalities came together. They developed funding agreements and everything. And of course, the rest is now history. But
Yeah,
so that
that's
just points to what you both have mentioned in terms of the camaraderie and insightfulness and want to do what's best for the community.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And I think that's why we're doing this podcast, is to celebrate that and celebrate people like you that fostered that for the time that you served and continue to serve. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for serving Souderton between 1966 and 2010 and 2026. You're still both serving. And I think that was fascinating to learn some of that background, and I appreciate your time and for your years of service.